Welcome back, folks. So today I have a friend of mine on, Christina Robinson. She is, I don't know, one of the more badass single lady friends I have. She's just like, I don't know, you can tell folks about yourself, Christina, but when I first met you, I thought you were so cool. You seem like a free spirit. You could get up and just fly to Tokyo whenever you want. And you're a real estate owner and you're someone who, left the corporate space. So I was like, oh my God, this is such a cool lady. And, fast forward now, it's almost a year that we've known each other. And,
Yeah.
so we actually met on a cruise, and it was like a business networking cruise, and we met and we clicked. And when we came back from the cruise, we kept in touch and, do working sessions occasionally. And now we've committed to keeping each other accountable once a week. But what I find really fascinating about your story, because again, I'm gravitated towards women who have agency and take charge, and they want something, they go get it. And you were somebody like that. You left the corporate space, you went all in on real estate, and you've told me about some of the stuff you've gone through. It's like, it was not easy. So tell folks a little bit about your background. Like, what were you doing originally? How did you take the plunge? What are you doing right now?
Well, I'm originally from Jamaica. I came to America as an adult, 18 for college, and I ended up in Minnesota. And that's where my introduction to America was through living in Minnesota winters. I had enough of that and moved to Florida because that's where the rest of my family migrated. And then I moved here and was living with my mom. And then at the time, I was dating a guy that lived in Minnesota, and he was going to move to Florida to be with me. And I was living with my mom, and my mom looks at me and is like, he ain't living here. And I was just like, okay, so I guess I have to get a place. And for some reason, I just didn't want to pay rent. I don't know why, but I actually got asked this question last night on my webinar, and I was just really, really, really just did not want to pay rent. So I ended up buying my first place, and I bought the first place I saw. And I moved into that 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo. It was huge. It was very big. And at the time, Airbnb had just started, and they had the option of renting out rooms in your house. So what I would do is I would rent out the 2 extra bedrooms, and I would live in the master suite. Mm-hmm. And that was actually how I started in real estate. I was house hacking. Obviously, the relationship did not work out, but I bought a place, and I have a dog as a result of that for 13 years. My dog is now 14 in January. Wow. So that tells you how long ago that was. But yes, so over the years, I kept working in corporate. My background is in corporate finance, and I just kept buying properties very slowly over the years. Every 14 to 16 months, I would close on a new property. And I realized at first, obviously, they're not like making a ton of money. But as the years went by and I saw the gains in the appreciation, I became exceedingly unhappy in my corporate job, like panic attacks, like I was being bullied at work in one of my first jobs. And then later on, just being different gets a little tricky when you're in corporate. And I just had it. Yeah. And then eventually from years, very slowly, this is not some quick, rich, story of like, oh, I acquired 100 houses overnight. No, it was very slowly, systematically. And it's very difficult when you're on a single income, but I did it. And I guess the biggest thing that I talk about right now, having done it, is that you can do it on your own. You don't need a partner. You can do it as a woman. You can do it as an immigrant, because this is not really what, my parents expected. As an immigrant, they're expecting to be a doctor or an engineer or an attorney. Yeah. And, but yeah, so that's been my path. And look, with I'm so incredibly grateful. 3.5 years ago, I was able to leave my full-time job fully. And my real estate is more than sufficient,
Yeah. I think what's fascinating when I hear about your story is like, one, you just had this urge to not want to pay rent. And it feels like this was like right out of college. You were like, I think I don't want to pay rent. So that urge to want to buy, I don't think a lot of us had that at that age. Like we weren't even thinking about that, much less buying. Like we were thinking, oh, where are we going to live? What's the cool place, right? Do I get to live with my best friend who's going to be my roommate? But you had a very different trajectory. And the other thing that I'm noting, and I remember when I first heard you say this, like that what you said, like every year, every half year, you would buy a home. And,
Yeah.
for
I've
most,
also,
and most people hear that and they go, oh my gosh, how do you do that? And now in this day and age, when a lot of people are having trouble buying homes, some people might find this unrelatable, but you're saying this is doable. So how do you usually help women reconcile that?
I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot more difficult now because what we're spending in the stores is just far more expensive than it was 5 years ago before
Yeah.
COVID. And we're still making the same money.
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
us are not making 20% more or 15% more, but everything seems to me to be a heck of a lot more expensive. And housing prices have gone through the roof. It's really unreal.
Yeah.
However, rents have increased as well. So there is that. So I will say what I did, and which will always stand the test of time, is that I was very, very diligent with my money. And I always, for a very long time, had two sources of income. So I had my full-time job, and then I had my little side hustle that I managed while I was working full-time. And the biggest thing I will say that I did is that every time I got a job increase, I always lived on my prior salary, and that delta of increase went straight into direct deposit into a savings account. And that's the money that I used for my down payments.
So yeah, what I'm hearing is just basically discipline, right? Like I'll tell this.
I was always that way. And I think that definitely might stem from, my parents, just I remember my dad like taking me to the bank, and like he'd make us like count out the money before he made deposits. And I think I've always had a more positive relationship with money from my parents. And I think that definitely has helped fundamentally, give me a good base point.
Yeah, I love that you actually said that, because I wasn't even thinking about this, that you probably had a very different money mindset, from a lot of people. It seems like you probably were brought up looking at money as a resource, versus some of us were brought up to fear money from the perspective of, hey, you don't understand it, so you don't want to touch it, you don't want to mess with it. Just make sure, just don't spend it. That's as far as a lot of our financial education went. At least for me, I know growing up, the only thing I learned from my parents was don't spend it. Which is not helpful. Like I get where they were coming from. They want to tell their teenage kid, like, hey, I'm giving you this allowance, like don't spend it all in one place. But that's the extent of finance education I got at home, was just don't spend it, which of course, as soon as you turn 18 and then you like have the autonomy and you have not learned how to budget, you're like, whoa, all of a sudden I have all this money. And then, yeah, it's not helpful. So say a little more about that, because you're definitely more unique in that way, which I think is something that people don't give credit to, is that how you view money is so important.
It is fun. Like, I think that would be the fundamental, again, baseline for anybody who's doing anything business wise, as an individual, as a person. I've always treated money as a relationship. So the same relationship that you have with your best friend or your brother or sister. I think that you just have to respect it. You have to honor it. You can't take advantage. You have to, and always have a positive relationship with it. Because I have this one secret, like when I shower, I always like visualize money falling on me. In our culture, if your hand middle is scratching you, you think that money is coming. Like I always have these little things that have been a part of my like psyche of, money. And I always think that anytime I have a big expense, I always just believe that something's gonna come and happen and figure it out. And that took a long time to kind of develop that confidence. But I'll say the biggest thing that I think fundamentally changed a lot of my mindset was I had a friend who gave me this book. It's called The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker.
Okay.
That book fundamentally changed me because it has like these written exercises, and it talks about like, what's your parents' relationship with money? You know, how did they treat money? And it makes you really walk through like, what is your current relationship? What is the relationship that you want? And this is how you go about, you know, having a positive relationship. And then, of course, the big book that everybody talks about, which is Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
So those two books, I think, are like game changers if you're looking to really take where you are now to the next level, because everything in your life is a physical materialization of what you think upstairs.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Yep. And in some ways, it's like you're talking about manifestation too. And I know there's like two camps out there. There's one camp that's very much into the conscious world, you know, the manifestation, and this other side that's like, that's all woo. It's all about execution. And I think there's somewhere in the middle, because there is some science to that. What you focus on is where you're going to direct your energy, and that's what you're more likely to make happen, right? I mean, from a behavior like sequence standpoint, it makes sense. And even from a neuroscience standpoint, you know, I've heard people say that really what it's doing is you're priming your brain to just focus and to only see that. It's kind of like if you meet someone who's negative and they're negative all the time, they just happen to see all the negative things all the time. And sometimes even the negative stuff that you don't see, you're like, oh, I had no idea you even picked that out. But it's kind of like that. You know, it's like what you're talking about is like you're training your mind or perspective to focus only on the things that serve you. I want to get a little onto an edgier side, okay? Because you know, you're killing it. You're kind of like the model woman entrepreneur that I think a lot of other entrepreneurs look up to. You're also single. And I think, you know, a lot of women today may think, oh, that just seems like such hard work. You yourself said it. It's not easy. You have to do all this. Why do I have to do all this? Why can't I just like, you know, get married and hopefully my husband has all that stuff? You know,
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, I want a rich husband tomorrow, right now, last week, 10 years ago, because it's not guaranteed, right? And I think we have to recognize that life goes through ups and downs, ebbs and flows. And even if you were to end up with someone who is, you know, financially secure, it doesn't mean that they're going to be financially secure forever or for the next 3 years, or you know, when I was working in corporate, I got laid off twice. You know what I mean? Like, and there is it is literally an announcement at 9 a.m. You're getting laid off, and then you're out the door by 9 p.m. Or it's 2 weeks from now. Hey, the business is closing down. Please, you know, create these documents describing what your work is. And I think that the thing that I think everyone should understand is that you're not guaranteed anything. However, you can take a little bit more agency and control and say to yourself, okay, how can I build assets for myself that are mine, that will support me? You know, and of course, make sure if you do get married after you make all these decisions that you protect yourself. But I'm not going to lie. Like,
and when you say protect yourself, you mean get a prenup?
Yes, get a prenup.
Yes.
Don't lose that. Don't lose, 14 or 10, 7, or even one good decision of buying a piece of property because you didn't protect yourself in a prenup. But I think as a woman, we are naturally, I think, I'm not saying this is for everybody, but I think naturally we want to be taken care of. We want to be, provided for. We want someone that is leading in our lives, and then we want to come into our feminine, which is to create a home and to be nurturing and to, you know, and those are natural instincts. And I may not have them naturally because I am going to build. I'm going to buy more property. I'm always thinking about money. I'm always, you know, chasing that next decision. And But I do understand that my natural instincts would be to meet a guy that could, add to my life and push me in a way that I've never been pushed before, and to provide a sense of security. Because what I've realized is that my money became my security. And I think for like maybe subconsciously, it replaced my need for a man. Because it's filling that void. No, I shouldn't call it a void, but it fills that natural need for partnership and support because I can do everything myself already.
Yeah.
So then, but that's something that I need to flesh out and figure out, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I think, and at the end, I do think that as women, we're not as risk tolerant as men are, because I do feel like this warm, fuzzy blanket around me when I see my bank account. Like, it does give you that sense of security. And when I was younger, not that I'm old, but how do I describe this? I still have the ability to put everything down on red, which is my masculine. But then my feminine is like, ooh, so fuzzy, all this money.
And what's interesting with what I hear you say is like, there is that duality, I would say, that I think, yes, to an extent, I do think that as us women, we do enter more into our feminine when we do have, like, if we're straight, if there is a male figure in our life, that the male figure to be leading in a way that allows us to lean into our feminine. And at the same time, I think we can be very self-sufficient, as you are proof yourself. As I was proof, before I got married. Like, did I need a man? No. But I think having that financial independence, having that ability to provide for ourselves, I think clarifies our view of who do we want let in our lives because they fulfill us, versus, oh shit, I'm desperate and I guess you'll do because you're my option.
I feel like that's not really in the realm of how we should go about making decisions nowadays, because we're not guaranteed partnership anymore like we were, like, maybe when our parents were born. People were having kids at 24, 23, 28 was old. Now, I'm way past the age of anybody would want to be thinking about having kids.
That's not true. Don't say that. I know women who are 40.
Back then, right?
Yeah.
But I think that we need to be fully aware of the fact that as women, we have more agency. We are now educated. We have job opportunities, and we're not in a position where we need partnership anymore. It's an option. It's becoming such an option that women are choosing to be alone more, right? Because, oh my gosh, I watched the best interview with Tracy Ellis Ross. Okay. She's 50, I think, and she's, not able to have kids anymore. She was talking about like this decision, and she says, why am I going to add a man to my life if he's not going to add, like, bring a man into my life if he's not going to add to it? Yes. What's his point?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that we're now in a society where we are fully able to be self-sufficient. If you need money right now, there are 100 influencers on Instagram that can show you how to make $1,000 this week. If it's from Ubering, babysitting, from creating a PDF in Canva and selling it, there are so many ways that we can be self-sufficient and independent. It's just a choice at this point if you want to depend on somebody, in my opinion. Yeah. And I think anything short of that is you selling yourself short and really just not coming fully into your potential. I think that we've all been given a gift, right? Every single person has a gift that they were given on this earth. And you have just not taken the time to tap into that. Because once you tap into that, you'll see the opportunities for fulfillment and contribution. And from that will come the money. Yeah.
And I think I agree with a lot of that, because one thing that I keep thinking about is, the word option use, right? Women now can look at partnership as an option. And And I love that word because that's also a word we use in the stock market. I mean, what does it really mean? In some ways, it means like it's a choice, it's freedom. It means you are not bound to it, but like Tracy, what's her full name? Ross.
Ellis Ross, yeah.
Ellis Ross said, why would I bring someone into my life if he's not going to add to it? And in many ways, I think people should look at partnerships like that anyway, right? That's why they say you should come together as whole and not, not looking for someone to complete you, et cetera, et cetera.
They won't.
Yeah. And whenever since I was a kid, and what's funny is even though my parents didn't really give me a lot of financial education or advice, the one thing, well, actually two things, there are only two things that they were very explicit about. One was from my dad, and he said, don't ever owe anybody money. So I just remember that. It's like, I just don't borrow. I'd rather borrow from the bank, but I'm not going to ask a friend for money.
Oh, okay. Just checking you're okay with the bank and the credit card companies.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. He was, because when I was a kid, with our circumstances living in Hungary, borrowing from the bank wasn't a huge option. So when we needed money, it was borrowing from the community. But anyway, and then, when that happens, bad things happen too, right? When individual lending happens. And so that was his lesson to me. Don't ever, owe anybody any money. And the other thing for my mom was don't ever depend on a man for money. She said, always have your own. I'm paraphrasing because she told me in Chinese. But basically her lesson to me was always make sure that you can take care of yourself, that you never have to depend on a man to take care of you. Because when that happens, you basically say, you basically give your life as leverage for them in a way, and that was her perspective. I also think about oftentimes when it comes to women and independence that, the reason why I thought you were such a good person to talk about this is because one of the things I heard you say before, and maybe you can tell folks the story is that when you, were really into investing while having a job, that gave you extra confidence to have boundaries at work because it gave you options, right? Because now you know that your ability to get groceries or whatever was not dependent on just one thing.
And the same thing applies in a relationship and romantic relationships with your parents, relationships with a roommate. It doesn't matter who that person is or what that is. It can be your job, which tends to be our biggest partner in life, right? Because we spend a lot of time there. And so when my first job here in Florida, it was for a massive corporate company. And there was a woman there that was pretty evil. She made grown men cry at that job. And she was very difficult to work with. And I think at the time I was really, really just, I knew from the very first job I had that I didn't want to work. Like, I just didn't want to work full time in the situation.
Same here.
Like, I just knew, like, I was literally on WhatsApp all day with my girlfriend talking about how much I hated it. But, I'll say this one caveat. It's easier to leave a job when you suck at it. It's so much harder when you're pretty good at it and you're nowhere near being fired, but you hate it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that was it's this conflict that you're having where it's easy and the money is there, but you hate it. It's a very different situation when you're bad at your job.
Yeah.
But so I decided one day that I was going to put together, I don't remember what it was, how many months of savings I needed, but I remember it was like $34,680. I don't know where, I probably calculated it knowing me. And what I would do is that I created a sticky note. I have them all over my desk because like this one is the balance of one of my properties I want to pay off. It's like $160,000. I'm like, I'm going to pay that off next month. And, but I always have these sticky notes in my life to remind me what my goal is. And I was like, I need to save $34,000. And I remember the day that my account hit that money, that amount. And it felt like this thing just like raised off my body. And I remember walking through the hall and passing my manager, who told me that he wouldn't give me more than I think a 1.75% raise, because he thought that given my age, I made too much money already. That's the reason he didn't give me my full 3% raise. I remember walking by him and just thinking, I shouldn't say this out loud, but I just kept thinking, like, you're a loser.
Yeah.
And I had never, like, my mind had not, like, the synapses never connected the fact that I was someone else outside of this job.
Yeah.
Until that moment when that money gave me that power. And that power can come from so many different things for every individual, right? It could be, success at raising money for your church. It could be running a 5K. It could be so many things, because you found yourself outside of that job, that dependency of your sense of self outside of that position. And let me tell you something, there is so much power in that, because fast forward, I think 6 years later, I'm in another very toxic corporate environment. By this time, I own a few more houses. I've made a lot more money. And I remember there was a horrible bully again in this corporate office. She got all of I think there were like 3 like African Americans that were suing her for, like, suing the company for discrimination because of this one lady. And then, like, a bunch of people quit. Like, she was terrible, terrible. But for some reason, she left me alone. And I think 100% is because she knew she couldn't, like, mess with me, because I walked into that office every day knowing that I didn't need to be here. I was very good at my job, and you can't talk to me sideways, because I will respond. You know what I mean? And that's not for everybody, but I was able to do that because I knew that if I lost that job tomorrow, okay, no, like, it wasn't going to be the end of the world. And that is what investing in my real estate did for me. And that could be so many different things for every individual, but it is liberating.
Yes. And I feel like if there was any part of the conversation that I need to clip out and highlight, it was exactly just this monologue you had, which was, it all of a sudden, not only did it give you just another source of income, but it gave you this mental, like, peak level confidence, because now not only do you have confidence in your ability to provide for yourself, but now your presence is also communicating to others that you can't fuck with me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And, and there's so much to unpack with what you said, because I myself came from the corporate space, and I once upon a time was really in it of corporate world, like very much in it of the corporate cult, I would say, which is this idea that this is the only path I have, right? If I'm not doing this job, then I better have a rotational role, or I need to move to a different company doing the same thing. Like, the idea of doing anything but did not exist, and the corporate world does not nurture you to think creatively about your career, right? You really get trained into thinking that what you're doing, the job you're doing for corporate, is your career, and that is so. Yeah.
It's your life.
Or that it's your life. And in some ways they go, I used to call them golden handcuffs, but that only applies if they pay you really well. But oftentimes it's a mental handcuff that they put on you by saying that, like, this is your path. That's it. What are you going to do? You're not going to go quit your job, right? There's no way you're going to give up the security. You got benefits, blah, 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 and all that stuff, 401k matching. There's no way you are going to do that, because we essentially own you. We've basically created conditions that you cannot leave, and that you mentally will be attached to this. But then you freed yourself. But I think what's unique about you, though, Christina, that maybe you're not seeing, is that the level of agency you have, not everyone has. Because you got up and you're like, I need $34,000 in my account, so here's how I'm going to go do about it. Some people will look at that and be like, oh gosh, no, I have all these bills, I have all this and all that, and they will never do it. And then 10 years will go by, and then look back and go, I guess I could have saved up $3,000 a year, right, if I wanted to.
But it comes back to, I pretty much, like, given the strategy so far, which was, remember, I house hacked.
Yeah.
So we have to remember that pain now is what you need to have the bliss and the freedom later.
Yeah.
I had roommates, right? They paid my mortgage. So I was able to save my mortgage payment every month.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I got a raise. So when I left Minnesota, I was making, I think I was only making $43,000 at my corporate job in Minnesota. And when I moved to Florida, I was making 65 or 66.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did is that I saved a difference and lived off what I was doing before Minnesota, saved a difference and saved my mortgage.
Mm.
The question is, are you willing to go through the pain now so that 10 years later, you are literally like, I've been to 20 countries in the last, 3 years. And I live a life where I can wake up and go to Pilates or walk my dog or make matcha. So it's the question is, are you willing to be disciplined enough now so that you can have the life that you want in the future? And the thing that always drove me crazy, you ever pull up next to like a really beautiful car, like a Porsche or like, I don't know, whatever you're into, Corvettes and whatever, you see these super, super nice cars. And when you pull up next to them, it's just this old person.
Mm-hmm.
What's the fun in like living life when you're that age? I never understood that concept. So for me, I wanted to be able to be young enough to enjoy the things that I wanted to do. I just got back from Japan, and honestly, I'm too old to be doing this crap anymore. Like hauling my suitcase through the trams, like figuring public transportation out. I'm like, maybe I need more money so that this whole thing was like catered to and paid for. You know what I mean? Like, there is a point where we forget that the lifestyle that you want, your body may not be able to do it by the time you get to 65. So I highly recommend you start planning now to get out of this rat race sooner so you can better enjoy it. Because a friend of mine just messaged me that he hurt his back pulling his suitcase out of the trunk of his car. He's 50.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen when you're in your 30s.
Yeah. Right. Or from my perspective, it's, if you take care of your body will take care of you, right? There's an element to that too.
How are you going to take care of your body when you're sitting at a desk I used to get to work at 8:30 and then I would sit there till 6 because if you left at 5, it looked bad.
Yeah.
How can you work on your body if you're physically sitting all day?
Yeah. Yeah. The corporate world doesn't let you live your life, Yeah.
No, but they make it seem that way, right? Like they're like, oh, go do this little 5K on the weekend and we'll give you $50 towards your health savings account. Or they do these little fun challenges, but like doing something 3 times a month or once every other month is not healthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're going out to eat every single day at lunch. Like there's so many things about corporate. It's pretty much like school when your kids go to school, right? You are going to adult school. I don't want to go on and on about it, but like, because I think the other thing too is not everyone, how do I say this? Like not everyone has the choice to leave at this moment, but you have to put up with it. And if I could do it all over again, I probably wouldn't have left.
Yeah.
The way that I left, I would have been a lot more strategic about it. So having a really, really clear plan as to how you're going to leave your job is extremely important. Don't just say, oh, I'm going to get $34,000 and F off. Like for me, or whatever your goal is, right?
Yeah.
You have to be extremely strategic. Max out your 401ks. Make sure you have a HSA, bucket. I had a lot of cash in my HSA and I ended up having massive health issues. I got into an accident traveling. It's a long story.
Yeah.
And then luckily I had my HSA. So, and I help people like really think through that process. Like what are the things that you need to get in order to do what I did? Because I am now at the end of it and I can tell you all the things I wish I had done and the things that I did right.
Yeah. And I know that you do these webinars often. So folks, you definitely want to check her stuff out. And what I'm also hearing from you, and the thing that I'm thinking about is, there's trade-offs to everything, right? I mean, like what we're saying is, if you want to change your life, if you want to do something different other than just kind of staying, in the paths that are known, you have to be disciplined enough to do something different consistently because the path that you're on will fight you. Right?
Yes.
The daily path of going to work from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, that lifestyle will fight you. because the stuff that comes up is, I can't do this. I don't have time, blah, blah, blah. And it's a trade-off, right? You can choose safety. But then the trade-off, maybe you don't have as much autonomy. And then the trade-off for autonomy is you have to stay very disciplined. Like you said, you have to, make some sacrifices. But I would say though, whichever you choose is your choice, but only one of them will actually give you more options. And when you have more options, I think that's true freedom. And
that is freedom.
Right. And one of the ways to get more options is through financial freedom. But you have to be able to create those options because everything's a trade-off. There's no one perfect path, right?
And I want to be careful that people don't think that money is what gives you freedom.
Sure. Yeah, it's one path.
Because even in my business, it's not free. Like, I don't feel free to just like pick up and leave Florida. I have all my houses here. I don't feel free to just take off during my busy season when it's a lot of chaos. Mm-hmm. However, it's mine. Like, when I walk into my properties, like, I just had a fence burned down because there were some homeless people living on the other side.
Yeah.
So there are four owners affected because the fire happened in the corner. And these three men have not tried to fix the fence. Like, none of them. One of them said, "Well, I don't have a building on my structure, so I'm not financially responsible." He's the one who had the homeless people on his fence. So then I have another neighbor who wants me to pay for half of a fence, which is not legally even mine. Mm-hmm. And then he didn't even do the work he said he was going to do. And then he's like giving me attitude. There is still a lot that goes into managing properties. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you something. When I walk into my houses and I see something that is broken, I look around it all and I say, this is mine. Yeah. This is all for me. Yeah. This house is worth X amount. And when I come into my gratitude, when I come into like accepting the fact that like there is so much more positive around what I'm doing and it's for me, it makes what I do feel more freeing. Yeah. It's not easy. And it's not passive. There's nothing called passive income or whatever people call it. It's not true. Yeah. But there's a completely different feeling that you get. And the part that I love the most is that when other people see me doing what I'm doing, now my family, my mom has an Airbnb, my mom is buying more property. I see people in my life taking on agency to buy themselves assets as well because they saw me, they've seen me do it myself. Yeah. And I have so many people that reach out to me through my social media and they're like, oh my God, like you have made this look so much more real than the way other people do. And now I have a better understanding of what I'm getting myself into. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. Yeah. It's not easy, but it's so worth it. Like when you sell a property and you get a check for $300,000 that is all yours, nothing can replace that feeling.
Exactly. And that's like the confidence, right? You can walk around knowing that you can't fuck with me, right? Yeah, like I choose to be here. I choose to be here.
My work car is still my Corolla from college. That car is a 2016. So it's 20 years old in 2 years. No, next year. Yeah. I drive around in a 20-year-old car to all my properties. And I cannot tell you, like, I pull up and my car is worse than my cleaner's car on so many levels. Like I've had people ask me if I was a cleaner and it doesn't matter what people think anymore because I know what I am. I know what I've built and I know what I'm capable of. Right. Mm-hmm. And, I'm dressed up now, but trust me, this is not how it looks when I'm out, running my properties and telling men what to do all day. Mm-hmm. And, haggling them down on what they're charging me. Mm. We can get into a whole other different conversation about like what it means to be a woman in a man's space. Yeah. Because that is a whole different thing. And you don't think that you're going to jump into this and be like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, pew, 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 and then pow, pow, pow. And then eventually it's like, shh.
Oh gosh, and I think this is why folks, like I think y'all should talk to Christina. Is why I brought her on because she does not bullshit, right? Because I see so much bullshit out on social media where people are like, oh, we were able to, like you said, like I bought 100 homes in the last 5 years. Here's how you can do it and make $100K a month. And then you just hear that and you're like, this sounds too good to be true. It probably is. And then I like that you put it out there like this is possible, but it's not easy. like there are moments I'm sure that suck. Like you've shown me pictures, you've talked me through a couple things. Like you're very capable. You'll get up on a roof and see what's wrong, but like it's not easy, and it's still worth it because, like you said, it gives you a level of freedom that you won't be able to get if your destiny in was in someone else's hand, right?
Yeah.
And and in many ways, sure, freedom is not free, right? I say that all the time too. Like in any
That's a
ways,
good
like
one.
freedom is not free. Freedom actually means that you have now a higher level of accountability, right? Because that's what that means, right? It's like why when you were a kid and you become a teenager, the more freedom you got, the more that you were accountable for, right? If you wanted to be able to close your bedroom door and have privacy, great. But now you're accountable for, if something happens, your music is too loud, you bring friends and you're not doing home, like maybe the consequences of you not showing up what you need to do at home are going to be greater because freedom just means more accountability. Like what I'm hearing you say is they brought you freedom, but you're also accountable so much more
I'm
now.
100% accountable. I
Yeah.
mean, if I wake up and I decide I'm not going to do anything today, I probably won't make money.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's not the way I should say it. I should say I may not make as much money, but in real estate, my houses are printing money every day, right?
Yeah.
But right now I have a property that's the tenant left 2 weeks early. So if I decided today I didn't want to do anything, I would lose a day of it not being re-rented.
Mm.
So that it's not that again, it's still a job, but it's mine.
Exactly. And I think that's what's beautiful is like it's yours. When it's yours, I think you also care a lot more too.
I probably overcare. And I think that comes from my natural personality to perform with excellence.
Sure.
Which goes back to why being in corporate was so like conflicting because you were good at your job, but you didn't like it. Yeah. And that's what happens when women are we are so incredibly capable. It's interesting how you can give a woman, and I don't mean to I'm just going to say it. Yeah. You can give a woman a task and it's more likely that she can figure out how to do it. But if you give a man the same task and it's just out of his wheelhouse, it ain't happening. Mm. It ain't happening, right? Like if you gave me, I wish I could pick something that was, one of the guys I know, like if I gave him a chair and said, hey, it's rusty, go fix it, he'd be like, I have to go online and figure out what to do. And, and I'm sure that like most people would do that. But like, if you gave a woman a chair and she knew she had a spray paint and a hand brush, she'd brush it off and just go spray it in a thing and put it out. Like we are so much more capable than we give ourselves credit for in problem solving. And it comes a lot from raising children, being the master of your home, like having to work with less resources. Mm-hmm. And if we could like reconfigure that mindset into everything else, the level of achievement that you can do is incredible. I had a house flood, right? The dishwasher line like went out and it flooded the entire house. It happened over weeks and weeks and weeks. I had to rip out all the floors. The people came to rip out the floors, but they didn't like cut the baseboard, so it ripped off the drywall. Oh my gosh. I hired a guy to do it. Day after day, nobody showed up. 3 days before, I have another guest coming in because some of my properties are short-term rentals. Nothing was done. I went and I was working full time. I was at that property, literally rebuilding back drywall and putting on baseboards and caulking and painting until 3:00 every morning for 3 nights while I went to work full time during the day to get that property back rented. Because I had to. Mm-hmm. And I had YouTube. But, sometimes we don't know what we're fully capable of until we are pushed to do that. And what happened to me, I think, is that I hated my job so much that I wanted to get out. And it was that drive that really pushed me. And also so many people who showed up for me. I had I had a mentor, another woman that I met who was doing what I was doing. Not like an official mentor, but, everything she did, I copied her. And then I've just had so many people pour into me. Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing too is that as a woman, when some good men see you doing what you're doing and you're alone and you're single, they will go above and beyond for you. You know, every single contractor that I have, from electrical, roofers, plumbing, oh, my plumber is amazing. Handyman, if I call them right now and I said, listen, I have an emergency, I really need your help, 99% of the time, they will drop what they're doing, come help me, and go back.
It probably because also you're a good customer. So give yourself that credit too, Christina, that you're probably really great to work with, because that's the other thing. Like, they're probably owning their own business, and then they're choosing who they want to work with as well.
Absolutely. And I'm very good about giving referrals. I also am very involved in my neighborhood. So I put their contact informations in my neighborhood groups. I am very supportive of the people who support me, but I do think that when good people see other good people trying to do and build something for themselves, they will help you. My pool contractor, I built a pool one time, and I had one of the worst days I've ever had in all of my business. And I had these guys drag a tree across a travertine floor that I put in. It's a long story. And they ruined the floor. When I walked in, I was just so completely angry that I couldn't, because the day started with him, the man that dragged the thing across my pool, saying, so where's your husband? Who's here to tell me what to do? Why are you doing this by yourself? Who are you? And I was like, explaining to him, I had to explain myself. This happens all the time. I own the property. I was the one who called you. I don't have a husband. And when I came back and saw that the same guy that gave me a hard time that morning, and it wasn't just that, it was like months and months and months of stress over this pool. And the pool was done now, finished, beautiful. And he dragged a tree across the pool, the tile around the pool. And it was green, it was stained, it was messy. I was angry, so angry, Wendy. Like, I literally just shut down and went into my bedroom and went under the covers. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is just insane. And under the sheets, I called my pool contractor and I said, Kevin, can you please go over there? I can't do this. And I'm very good about like talking without them knowing I'm crying or whatever. Kevin left his job from across town. Remember, I fully paid him. He doesn't need to come back. He went over there, got those men to go get bleach and mops, and they cleaned that floor by hand. And I'm telling you, like, that is I think that was the hardest day I've ever had in this business. And I'm so grateful for him for showing up for me. But there are moments when you have to learn how to ask for help. But you also have to realize that you have to treat people in a way where they will come and help you in the end. And there are still really good people out there. Yeah. I will not go into all the terrible guys and contractors.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure you have dealt with some. Yeah.
No, I'll say that 95% are terrible. But I've been incredibly lucky at, once I meet my 5%, I won't let you go. Like, if you don't pick up my calls, I call you 7, 8 times. I'm not hiring anybody else. I'm waiting for you.
Well, hopefully if you're listening from the Miami area, you should hire Kevin, because I mean, he's a really good pool guy. So Christina, I think we need to kind of wrap up soon. But I feel there's so much that we could say more on this topic, because you have just such a wealth of information. And I know that part of you, I know you also have a passion for elevating women's power, because I've seen how you behave. I've seen how you stand up for me. I see how you also stand up for other women. And so I know this is important to you, and you keep giving back, even though it's not your primary business now, but you want to help other women. So if more women want to understand about real estate from a very realistic standpoint, and then not just this pie in the sky, I just buy a property and everything's going to be fine. But if they really want to get into it and be prepared, what's the best way for them to, kind of soak in what you know?
I mean, it would be coming to my webinars. I have a webinar called, I was wondering if you were setting that up. Financially Fit, F-It and Quit. It is on Eventbrite. It is every Thursday at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. And you can get the link to that on my Instagram, which is at Christina Invests. Again, I think that the most important thing, and I wish, there's so much to talk about, but it comes back to mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that you can take, massive action that is outside the realm of what you're used to is to change your mindset and to support your mindset by getting into community. I also have a WhatsApp group with other people who, done my webinar, who are familiar with my message and my work and are interested in buying real estate and we all support each other in the group, and you can't do this alone. I never did this alone, and you have to surround yourself with people who are willing to support you. And that's one thing I love about this space that I'm in, which is so different from corporate, because after 3 months, when you start a job, you can't be asking people for help all day long, right? But in the real estate space, I can call up so many different people and they will just like pour into you, tell you what, you need, and it's just such a completely different environment when you're outside of that. And I'm not saying that all corporate is terrible, but like, I can tell you that the space, when you do discover your tribe in the real estate space, it's pretty darn good.
Yeah, I so agree. Just, I think being an entrepreneur in the business world in general, I have never met just this wealth of women who are willing to support me and just to be there for me. Because honestly, like you said, like similar to your experience, and I know this just about every woman I know, there's something about the corporate which make women kind of undercut each other. But in the business world, if someone is passive aggressive or they don't treat you right, you kind of sniff them out really quickly because people aren't incentivized to pretend. Right? There's nothing for them. So if they want to support you, they will. And if they don't, you'll figure that out. They won't. And the thing is, a lot of women do want to support you, so that's the other message I want to spread out to the women too, is that oftentimes we feel like we're alone, especially if we make a mistake or if we meet a challenge, we're thinking, oh, it's just me here, I'm alone. But there's a lot of us out here who've been through that or are willing to just link arms and say, we'll help you. But
I want to be very careful in also, make sure that in everything that you do, you learn how to set boundaries.
Oh, absolutely.
And that is something that you will learn very, very quickly as a female operator in a man's space, especially if you're good looking and you're single. It's very, very important that you're very strict. You said that like my contractors like working with me. I don't know if they do, but because I am very like the same way I'm direct when I was in corporate, very precise and detail oriented. I can walk into a job site and be like, that's wrong. That should be fixed. You're being lazy over here. And you know what men respond to? Fairness. That's one thing I've realized. They're not interested in emotion. They're not interested in your opinion. But if you're fair, they will respond really well. And that's one thing I learned in finance, working with men. But there's so much to be said about that. But like, you have to learn to establish your boundaries, and you should practice that skill from now, where you are now. Learn to say no, learn to challenge people if they do something inappropriate. Because when you come out here into the wild, wild west of, entrepreneurism and being an independent contractor, working on your own, there is no one out here to protect you. You need to protect yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you put that message at the end. And folks, I know that a lot of us are thinking about money, just with how the economy's going. And again, woman to woman, if you feel like you need to protect yourself with more options, that, real estate is not a bad option. So talk to Christina. Again, Financially Fit, F It and Quit webinar. I think she does this pretty regularly. Look for it on Eventbrite. Or, I think she welcomes DMs and follows on her Instagram.
Super good on my DMs. And it's interesting. Like, if you send me a property, I will do a full blown analysis for you. I am such a giver, a natural giver. And I think it's because I've been given so much. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. And, and I have the time.
And this is what's lovely, is that Christina is unabashed with her boundaries. She's direct, but she's also unabashed with telling you about the life you can live. And this is why I think we make such good friends, because you're no BS, All right, folks, you heard it here. Christina R Invests on Instagram, and check out her webinar. Make sure to sign up
Yeah.
and learn the ins and outs. She'll give so much more on the technicalities as well. So thank you so much, folks, for listening. Thank you,
Absolutely. And
Christina.
thanks for having me, Wendy.
Yeah, absolutely.